Thank you, Annette. Here we are gathered down by the creek side, Jacoby Creek. And welcome one and all, those of you gathered here on our beautiful grounds and those of you on Zoom. My name is Bertie Welty and I am your worship leader for today. And I'm excited to see everybody here today. As most of you know, we are gathered on unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot people. We try to be good stewards of this land and learn from their example and honor them in many ways. We are at this time usually we're a shared ministry congregation, and indeed we kind of are, and yet our ministry at this time is a shared lay ministry. We minister to one another. So I will then ring the bell and let your body relax and centered into this sacred space. Our chalice lighting for this morning is the Huff purpose. Within us, the purpose of our fellowship is to nurture love, truth, justice, goodness, spirit, integrity, and health. Among us, the purpose of our fellowship is to embody a truly welcoming, caring, and diverse community. And beyond our walls, the purpose of our fellowship is to empower people to model, promote social and environmental justice and to stand up for and serve the most vulnerable. To me, this means that here at Huff, we nurture one another, being there in time of need and celebration and the everyday needs of life. We also practice ways of being, learning to embody our beliefs and values so that we are empowered to reach out to the larger community. And now, will you join me in renewing our aspiration, which is on your order of service or on your screen? May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Dear friends, we pause at this time in our service to honor the memory of Bill Hansen, who died July 23rd of congestive heart failure. Bill was an avid gardener and shared his bounty with others. His watercolor paintings were enjoyed by all when exhibited here at the fellowship. It was always a joy to be greeted with warmth and smiles and hugs from Bill on a Sunday morning. Our thoughts go out to Bernie and their family. We will no longer hear the sound of his voice, nor feel the touch of his hand. We extinguish our chalice to mark his physical passing. However, his spirit will live on in the hearts and minds of those he touched on his life's journey. We light this candle to symbolize his life. From the candle of his life, we relight the chalice of this community to symbolize how his love and influence go on shining amongst us. In mystery, we are born. In mystery, we live. And in mystery, we die. And now, as Annette plays, you're welcome to sing while masked gently and stuff. And of Spirit of Life. The words are on your order of service or on the screen here at Zoom. And those of you at Zoom do not have to stay masked while you belt it out. At this point, we sing our children to their classes. Go now. This time in our service, we share our joys, concerns with each other. And it is a time, a sacred time, to share what's deeply on your heart. And we ask that you be brief, come pick up a pebble, come up the stairs, speak your joys and concerns, and drop your pebble and return down, being careful of the cord on the floor. For those of you on Zoom, please put them in the chat, and Anna will read them at the end of the joys and concerns.
I'm Debbie, a joy and a concern. A joy to have you back, Anna. Welcome back. I'm glad you're feeling better. And a concern because Jenny Hansen has COVID. So.
I'm Margie Emerson, and I first got to know Bill Hansel many years ago when he and his first wife were in my Tai Chi class for some years, and a real addition to those classes, a joy to have. And then I had the very good fortune of having him and his second wife, Bernie, in Thursday Night Reflections, again, for years as regulars, bringing in their thoughtfulness and their wisdom and their life experience. He is truly, well, you know what he looked like on the outside. He was big, he was solid, and he was the same way inside. Just a very solid and very warm person, and a real light that has gone out.
Most of us go up, I go down. I'm Laura. I have a joy and a sorrow. As I was driving here today, I realized that tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of my mom's death. And the joy with that is that we just got back from visiting my brother out in Boise. And he has 3 children under the age of 5, and getting to watch all the cousins play together was quite a joy. And I know my mom was with us. I'm Pat McCutcheon, and I'm losing my hearing aid. This is a celebration. I am so excited. Last night, my wife won a $500 prize for her painting at the Ingrid Nicholson Women's Exhibition. Go, Cheryl.
I'm Greg. This is a stone of disappointment that weighs heavy on my heart. We've got 10 zucchini sitting on our counter at home that we totally spaced out and forgot to bring today. So next week, we'll be sure to bring them in, so lock your car.
I'm Marshall, and we're new here. We just flew in this week from Newfoundland to start a new life here, and y'all have really embraced us and helped us and really lowered the stress level of coming 4,000 plus miles to start a new life. And it's just a real blessing. Thank you.
Hello, welcome from Newfoundland. I've been there, it's nice. I enjoy Newfies very much. My name's Day, and I've been out of town. It's been about 2 months that I've been gone, and I'm really happy to be back. That's my joy. And I had a great opportunity to work in Yellowstone with combat veteran women suffering PTSD and disabled girls. So we were doing an ecotherapy program. And then the floods hit. You might have seen that on TV. And it got really kind of awful for a bit. And it was very exciting. I seem to keep finding myself in these situations. Last year I was on COVID lockdown for a year overseas, but I'm just looking at it as a chance to have an exciting time, a period in my life. So happy to see everyone. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chip. This is a stone of joy for how healthy Beverly Morgan Lewis appeared yesterday after, I think, a couple of weeks of dealing with COVID. So it's nice that she's back. This is a thank you to the people who helped display the Black Lives Matter and Climate Action banners yesterday in Eureka, including Beverly and Sina and Susie and Marshall and Tom Lewis. And who am I forgetting? Anyway, thank you very much for that. And this is a stone of remembrance. Ina Harris family had a memorial for her at their house on Pine Street in Eureka yesterday. And there were just the collection of people there emphasized the history and the reach that Ina had over the years with her leadership and her service in this community. And she was valued to all of us here and throughout the community.
My name's Danielle. I have 2 stones. The first is Celebration. We just got back. Actually, we were on the same airplane from the East Coast, and we got to see Andy's family and my family, and just, you know, all the parents and siblings, and have our kids play with their well, they're teenagers now. They're both going to be in high school, so I don't know if they played, but you know, they hung out and had a good time with all their cousins. So that's a joyful stone. And then while I was there, my mom went to the hospital 3 times. So I was glad I was there, but that's my stone of concern. And she is recovered and seems well. And there's lots of new meds, and maybe she'll be great, but it's also one of those, you know, you suddenly realize there's some health issues there you didn't know about before. So that's a stone for her.
Hi, my name is Kat, and I have a stone of joy for getting to join you guys for the first time this morning.
I'm dropping this pebble of concern for Sylvia Shaw, who is has a surgical procedure yesterday and is in the hospital. And I drop this pebble for members of this fellowship who are currently, shall we say, fighting the demon called COVID.
Hi, John Macklin. I'm dropping one in here for everybody to know that the senior centers are now back in work for Arcata and Eureka. Can you hear me? Right. It's amazing because I'm pretty loud guy. I don't hear either. But anyway, the Arcata lunch is at center is now for Arcata Recreations. Anyway, their senior lunch program is now begun, and they're offering meals at $3.50, or if you don't have money, it's free. So I want you to be aware of that. It's over in the area. And anyway, that was the thing I wanted to get out because we're involved in it and we're putting that up. And my bird is still flying around in my head. So this is going over here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share with you all the joys and concerns from Zoom, folks. First, we have William Hansel, who says, the tribute to Bill touches my heart deeply. Thank you so much for remembering him. And we have one from Ann Kilby. Grateful to have taken part as one of the raging grannies in the beautiful lantern ceremony last night at Clop Lake. Okay, and Dennis McGettrick says, I'm Dennis McGettrick. I too have moved here from across the country. I have a stone of gratitude and one of hope. Thank you all for being here. And I'll put a stone in myself. Thank you all for being patient through me having COVID and the last couple of weekends being hard, and even today not being 100. I'm coming back. It's been a long journey, but I'm grateful for all the love and support from this community. Thank you all. And today I'm going to drop the last stone for all the joys and concerns that we keep silent to ourselves in our heart.
Here's a stone, and we'll take a moment for that.
At our worship leaders meeting yesterday, I'm just going to belt it out because I don't know whether it's working or not. At our worship leaders meeting yesterday, we decided it was the time to actually pass the baskets. So when I pass the baskets, Bob, would you collect them at the back? Okay, so during Annette's playing in the offertory, I invite you to contemplate the joys and concerns that you have just heard. Freely, we have received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly, we bring to our fellowship and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Today's service is about ministry, not ministers. As most of you know, our congregation is at a crossroads. During this fall, we will be gathering and re-examining who we are as a religious community and what type of religious leaders we want. It is not enough to just say, let's hire a minister. We need to revisit both our covenant and our purpose as a congregation. The covenant was written in the 90s. In the 90s. Does it still reflect our current members, times change. And the survival of any institution depends upon its ability to adjust to change. We need to confer and decide. In today's time, why are we here? What do we want? What is our purpose? Several of our longtime members have recently died. Many of the elders of my generation are slowing down. We elders should not be the people planning the future of this congregation. This is for the younger members. We as elders need to be available for mentoring and assisting, yet the future does not belong to us. As hard as it is, we must step aside. As Khalil Gibran said so eloquently when speaking of children in his book, The Prophet, you may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. So, as one of those elders, I hope that through this service to stir some minds and ideas. We all have different connotations of words. So what does the term ministry mean? Who does ministry? Definitions vary. So I have asked our panelists to reflect on the 4 questions that are on your screen and on your order of service. Each presenter will have 2 minutes. So we'll go all the way through the first one, each one coming up, and then we'll do the second question, etc. So it's not a debate. It is a sharing of ideas and perceptions. If we run out of time, we won't address the 4th question, or I will forget to look at the clock. Okay, our panelists are the Reverend Sean Nichols, who many of you may not be aware, served for 3 years in the 70s as the minister of this congregation. He went on with his personal ministry being a career in social work. Amy Day is our religious professional here at Huff. She serves as the Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. Her background is complex and varied. She has a passion for people and the arts. Roy King is a recent addition to his fellowship. In addition to being a retired psychiatrist, he studied for the ministry at Starr King and received his MDiv from Pacific School of Religion, and then served as a community minister for 3 years for Palo Alto. I give you our panelists. The first question is, with or without a minister, our congregation is a shared ministry congregation. What does this mean to you?
Hello, can you hear me? That's what I get for being tall. There's a word. It's one of the ways that words, poetic words, work into religion and life, and it's grace. And grace is that characteristic that makes a dancer a beautiful dance. It is something that is in the dancer, it is in the audience, it is in the dance. And ministry is doing what religion does with grace. And so when you look and see it, you know, that's got it. And sometimes it doesn't. And ministry is doing what our religion does with grace.
Good morning, everyone. I didn't know all the credentials of all the people that I'm sitting up here with. This is impressive. So I, as someone who does not have a Master's of Divinity, I think for most of my adult life have had a little bit of maybe a bit of an imposter complex or inferiority complex, thinking that I have not had the necessary credentials at any given point in my life to do what is needed, right? Thinking that if I just got a couple more letters behind my name or a little bit, better title or spend a little bit more money on education, training, what have you, and that one of these days I would arrive at a place where I would be the type of person I need to be to show up in the world how I want to show up. Including in a circle like this in ministry. And I think one of the gifts of getting a little bit older, I'm 40 now, is you just care a little bit less, at a certain point, you know what you know, and you are who you are, and your credentials are how you show up and what you bring to the work. And you realize that what is really needed is presence and integrity and a heart for the people and the work and the mission that you are showing up to. And so I think of shared ministry. When I first came to this congregation, my favorite part of this service, and still to this day, I think is joys and sorrows, because I love seeing all the different flavors of this community, all the different ways that we show up in our beautiful, eccentric humanness, and the ways that, in my mind, divinity expresses itself in all these individual forms. And I know from my time here in this congregation that the way this community functions and the way we carry out our mission is through every single person seated here. It's through the people that are caring for our children right now and offering them our gifts, who bring their music, who bring their training and their teaching, who provide flowers, who do small group work, who provide rooms in their homes, who carry banners. I've seen shared ministry at work within this congregation during my time here, and it's powerful. There's no one person or body that is doing the work of this fellowship. It's every single person here, and it's beautiful to be a part of.
Looking historically across denominations, there are two poles to ministry, the hierarchical and the charismatic. Now, the hierarchical is what we know in, let's say, the Catholic hierarchical churches like Catholicism and Presbyterianism, where you have bishops, archbishops and presbyters. And the charismatic is more reflected the early Christian church, where there was this debate between, do you have authority and hierarchy, or do you have charisma? Charisma being the Greek term for grace. And by temperament, I would say I kind of prefer the charismatic. And I feel the need for the role of professional ministry is overrated, and that a charismatic ministry in which all members of our fellowship participate offers unique gifts. The gifts of genuine, open-hearted worship, the gifts of artistic and musical expression, the gifts of service, bringing about compassionate social action to our local community, and the gifts of relational care for those suffering or in hardship. Such gifts are meant to be shared rather than ranked, freed up and developed rather than preordained by authority. As such, then, the role of the office of minister, a called pastor, should be akin to that of a parent or a teacher rather than a CEO. I believe we in our fellowship are at a crossing point, a watershed moment when we can critically think about such a shared congregational ministry.
Thank you for your wonderful insights. The next question is, how would you define ministry?
I would define ministry as the full activation. It's a verb, it's not a noun. It's not a state, it's an action that is within the definition, within the limits of divinity, of being central to the facts of existence. Our roots go back ultimately to Calvin, who was a lawyer, and there are limits to what lawyers can say. There isn't a limit to what we do, but it is within or without. If it's done well, if it's done wholly, it's ministry.
So I am the grandchild of Baptist missionaries on my dad's side. He grew up in mainland Mexico. I still actually learn my Spanish from him. So to this day, people think I have a very strong Mexican accent that I got from, his upbringing. So I have memories when I was a child, my grandparents had settled in the Bay Area, and my grandfather was the pastor of a very large, mostly Cambodian church in pre-gentrification Oakland. And so I have memories of going to this huge cavernous building on Sundays when we would go visit them, and my grandfather being at the front of this congregation, just talking and talking for what seemed like a really long time. And I really don't remember much of what he said. Although I do have memories of in my teenage years going to listen to him speak and him taking pride in the fact that all of his children and grandchildren were such good Baptists. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to disappoint you someday. But my grandmother was in the background. She would do some of the Sunday school stuff, and she ran their vacation Bible school program. And so I remember one summer she invited just me, no other grandchildren, to come down for the week and to help her with her in her classroom at the kids camp. And I loved my grandmother. She was just one of those people who just made everyone feel loved and seen and tended in her presence. And I remember walking into this room of 30 plus children, and the moment she opened the door, all eyes, she was just mobbed by this room of kids, and Mrs. Day, Mrs. Day, Mrs. Day, and having this epiphany, like my grandmother, these people know her and love her just as much, if not more so than I do, because of the presence that she had been in their lives. She wasn't standing in front of them telling them how to be, telling them how to live, trying to necessarily educate them or proselytize them, but she showed up in such a powerful, nourishing, nurturing way. She created this oasis of love, and that was her ministry. And all, due respect to my grandfather and his, powerful, charismatic speaking abilities. But in some ways, I wonder if she was the one doing the more powerful work, because she was such a powerful ministerial presence in the lives of those she touched. So that's what I think.
So the question is, how would I define ministry? And to me, it's kind of intuitive and ineffable trying to define it. I can go back to my seminary training and then, buy the books. There's a set of courses called Practical Theology, which is how do you function in a real world setting rather than just a history of religion or the study of religious texts. Usually practical theology posits a list of ministerial functions like worship, preaching, art and religion, that we are so blessed to have such a large contribution from congregation in our fellowship, child and adult religious exploration, pastoral care of congregants, and service work for justice. This list reads like a laundry list of functions rather than a definition of ministry. If we go back to the origin of the word ministry or minister, it's kind of, I looked it up, it's kind of incredible. It derives from the Latin minus or minor, that it's the notion that a minister or ministry is a servant of the community, a servant of the congregation, rather than a bishop. Kind of echoes back to my thoughts about, hierarchical versus charismatic congregations. I do like the notion of doing service work. It constantly reminds me never to be arrogant or haughty or self-promoting. And that grooves well, I think, with the idea of a shared ministry congregation. Humility is a necessary and acquired virtue that is valued across almost all religions and philosophies and spiritualities.
Okay, what makes ministry ministry? Is it an attitude? Is it an approach? Is it acts? What is it?
Or maybe it's humor. I would say that ministry is an action. And how do we know what an action is? We know it by how it is done, by whom it is done, when it is done, when is it not done, when is it there, when is it not there, what are the consequences? Is it holy? Is it divine? Is it part of the way the world is? And is it something that leaves us more alive, more divine, more holy? And if that's so, then it's ministry.
So when I was looking over this question that Birdie shared with us, was gracious enough to share with us beforehand, one of the quotes that kind of left up for me when contemplating this was this one that's attributed to Aboriginal artist Lilla Watson. She says, quote, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together," end quote. And there's something that really resonates with me about that, because it seems, especially as Roy is bringing in this, this notion of hierarchy and doing ministry from the top down, right? Rather than looking at all of this sea of faces, this beautiful interdependent web that we are part of and are continuing to weave stronger, right? It alters my view, because it's not about me or anyone being in a position to reach out and do charitable work, right? This is more about we create the space together where I'm able to see that my survival, my blooming, my blossoming, my liberation is bound up in yours. And so we work together. I bring what I have, you bring what you have. And together we create something that helps us stay in that connected web together. I guess I'm just going to be the personal anecdote person today in this section. I was thinking about this. So I had probably, again, due to that structured Baptist youth, I was a troubled teen, as many are. And so my parents spent quite a bit of time and resources trying to fix me during my troubled years. And there was a lot of resources dumped into my troubled self. So they would take me into rooms for $150 an hour to get me to kind of, get underneath what was going on with me and fix me. And the only things that really made a lasting imprint during that period of my life were the people who came and built relationship with me. There was one woman who, a good 30 years older than me, came and she said, "We're birthday twins." It's like, "Oh, nifty, we have the same birthday." And for the next several years, she made it a point to pick me up a couple times a month and just take me to lunch or take a walk with me. And there was never a sense that she was trying to come and teach me something or fix me or make me better or help me see the error of my ways. She simply provided me a loving, witnessing presence so that I could do some of my own healing. And to me, I think that is some of the work of ministry. We don't try to fix, we don't try to show people how to do better, see the error of their ways, but we provide a loving presence so that the healing can spontaneously occur.
So what makes ministry? I actually don't think that ministerial skills can be reduced to kind of simple behavioral categories like attitude, approach, or acts. I kind of see ministerial skills as encompassing all three and more. We are all, as ministers, we all aim to cultivate virtues like patience, resilience, listening skills. That's so incredibly important, just to be a good listener as we do our ministry. Humility and openness. As we develop character, our skills will become evident in whatever context we happen to fall into, whether we're at a social justice rally or listening actively to a parishioner's sorrow or fears, or teaching children or adults in religious exploration.
And now, what aspect of ministry most resonate with you?
When I've been ministered to, or I've ministered to someone, or to a people, or to my dog, when it's over, I am larger more whole, more able, closer to life, closer to death, at peace. So that's the part that attracts me.
You went too quickly. I couldn't formulate thoughts in time. So I have been with this congregation about 3 years as a paid staff member. And during that time, I've actually had several occasions where people have approached me and asked me when I'm going to go get my formal training, get my Master's of Divinity. And I've looked into this actually. I went and I got on the phone with Star King and I looked into the program and, got all excited about because I like learning and geeking out on new education stuff, but got on the phone with an admissions counselor and, it's a 3 to 5 year commitment and about $75,000. And I knew that wasn't the right decision for my family. My child's still young, needs me around. I couldn't see putting, that kind of debt into my world at this point. It wasn't the right decision for me and my family. So how do you continue to show up and do ministry, even if you don't have the credentials? And at one point, someone even proposed to me the notion, well, what if that wasn't an issue? What if the money thing could be taken care of? And I sat back for a moment and thought, first, that's amazing and generous and wow. And then my second thought was, but what else could you do with those resources? Does it really behoove, if there is a way to generate that kind of capital for one person to go and get trained to do ministry, what would it look like to take that same amount of resources and spread it out into this whole ecosystem and provide multiple people with lay pastoral care training support and education and, invest in a community garden, whatever that looks like? What would happen if we took that same stockpile and rather than put it into one single person so they get way better at ministry, what would it look like to take that and spread that out over the entire food forest of our community and empower multiple people with the skills needed so they feel confident to show up to the work of ministry? So I don't know if that answers the question, but when I think of what I'm excited about, that excites me. The idea that maybe we can generate the resources needed not to empower 1 or 2 charismatic people to stand up here and say something hopefully encouraging and clever, but maybe we can rally those resources to empower this community and the one that lies beyond.
Well, as a retired shrink, I am now drawn to spiritual direction in a way to complement, my 44 years of doing mental health work. And, as I was thinking about that and I heard the song Spirit of Life today, it was almost like tears welled up because that is the essence of this fellowship, the essence of ministry, this fluid spirit of life that encompasses all of us, that, forges relationships between us and others. It builds a strong foundation for social justice. That is what resonates for me in ministry.
Wow. Thank you. Examples of ministry come to my mind. Awana Karel, week after week, year after year, greeting people and making them feel welcome. Sean Nichols in the kitchen, washing dishes. Valerie Gazinski, caring for our grounds. Greg Bloomstone on the board for like 8 years, most of them as, 11 or 8 years as president, co-president. The list goes on. One definition of ministry is it's about giving of our time, ourselves and our time, talents, and resources to bless and help others. The current UUA pocket guide for new members and stuff differs from the ones 20 years ago. They now say, it points out that ministry is simply what we do consistently in order to serve our congregations, our faith, and others. What distinguishes ministry from volunteering is that it's done consistently. Where is page 4? I had a really good page 4. I mean, it was super. I have 2 page 3s. And one of them says 4. I guess it's time for me to stop. But this fellowship, we minister to one another. It's the act of being with one another, of seeing what needs to be done and pitching in and helping, and calling somebody when you know they're down, or calling someone just to say hi. I haven't seen you in a while. It's reaching out and saying, oh, the chairs aren't set up. Maybe I can do it. It's helping one another in multitude of different ways. Together we build community. Together we expand ourselves and our lives. And I'm hoping that as we draw together as community and relook at everything, what are we all about? How do we go about our lives in this congregation so that we honor the elders and make room and a joy for the younger people, and so that this congregation will go on and on, maybe to the 7th generation. I hope that is so. With you all beside me, we can walk together down that path. And now, part of that walking the path is honoring the fact that we nurture one another. So our closing song today is From You I Receive, To You I Give, Together we share, and from this we live. I love the hand motions that we all made up. Way to go! I will extinguish the our chalice, but not the light of love that it signifies. May that go on in our hearts, here and into tomorrow. Blessed be.